Most people don't fail because they don't know what to do, right? They fail because they don't follow through. People will start motivated, they'll start excited, and they're convinced this time that everything they're going to do is it's different this time, right? It's not the same. Oh, back then I used to slack, but nowadays I'm not going to. They'll buy that program, that $7,000 program from that scammer online. They set the plan based on the program. You know what? This time, the program said to do X, Y, and Z every single day. I'm going to make sure I get it done. But more importantly, they tell themselves that this time's going to be different, right? Every other time I fail, but today I'm a different man. New year, new me. And then what happens? Inevitably, they end up stopping again. And it's not because they're incapable of doing it. Every single one of us, me, you, anybody watching this video, anybody send the video to, everybody, I guess for the most part, two arms, two legs, and at least two brain cells to rub together, where if you can conceive something, you can make it happen in this world. And it's not because they're stupid. Well, some of them might be because they're a little stupid, but they'll never realize. But it's not because they don't want it bad enough either, though. Because ultimately, we all want the Rolexes. We want the Lamborghinis, the Ferraris, the fine dinners, the multi-million dollar mansions. It's not from a lack of want. Some people do want it more than others. And if you're taking time to watch videos like this, I'm sure you're one of them. But because following through is harder than starting, that's where every single person inevitably falls short. Starting something feels good. You feel empowered, you're excited, you're hyping yourself up, saying to yourself, you know what? This time I'm going to be a millionaire. This is the best idea I've ever had. Nobody in the world's ever thought about it. I'm going to make it happen. But that follow through, man, is where it just gets disgustingly uncomfortable. When I was building my company up, we have been through some wildly bad times to get to where we are today. So, that being said, I want to talk to you guys today about why most people really don't follow through, even when they genuinely want to be successful, and what actually happens when they fall off and why they fall off. So, the first thing I want to go to is not acknowledging that it's a knowledge problem, right? It's not a knowledge problem. We live in a society nowadays that is the most information rich plethora and sometimes far too much data that we have right at our fingertips. This little thing right here, I have more computing power in my pocket than they had putting somebody on the moon, or they had developing the first CAT scan, or whatever it is. If you want to get in shape, there's thousands of free programs out there, right? If you want to make money, there's endless business models, strategies, tutorials. And if you want to improve your life, you can find routines and habits and systems in the blink of an eye, and they'll all work. But it's a matter of, once again, you being the person to follow through and make those things actually work. So with all of this right in our pocket, how come not everybody is nearly as successful as they want to be? And I'm not saying should be, as successful as they want to be, right? They end up getting stuck. And that should really tell you guys something. Every one of us, myself included, but we're here, we're doing good. We push through that follow through. And that's why I wanted to make this video for you guys, because a lot of you out there, and once again, if you took the time to watch a video like this, has concepts and ideas and inventions that could potentially revolutionize the world. But if you can't handle that follow through, that's where you're inevitably going to fall short. Because if information was the answer, then we'd have a different result, right? If just having the data was the lack that everybody didn't have, we'd all be multi-billionaires, trillionaires, coming up with these revolutionary concepts that not everybody could once foresee. It's a crazy thing, man. People know they should train, right? They should try to save more time. They should try to save more money. They should focus on really their efforts and what they want to accomplish out of this world, rather than just blindly scrolling on social media, looking at absolute nonsense all day long, all that goy slop that we're just thrown into our faces every single day. But instead of committing, they keep searching. They're looking for the next best thing, the better plan, the better business partner, whatever it is. Or, hey, my system might not be perfect, or I think it's perfect, but what if I did this? What if I did this? What if I did this? Ultimately, the first system of anything that you release into this world, if you're not embarrassed by it by 10 years down the road, you launched your product far too late. They're looking for a better plan, a smarter system, a more optimized routine, and learning to feel productive. But it's often just them trying to avoid the actual work that goes into becoming the person they need to be. And at some point, consuming information becomes a way to really excessively delay all of your success. There's a saying out there where there can be too much of a good thing, right? I love pizza. Who doesn't love pizza? If you have too much pizza, you're going to be a 400-pound slob. There's no question about it. But it's not because their plan is bad or the routine they have written in their head that they want to do is bad, but the consistency and resilience toward actually going after that every single day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You know, when I was building my company, and really still because we're aggressively expanding it up, I get about 4 hours of sleep a night. This is my schedule. I wake up around 4 a.m., breakfast, take care of the pup, go to the gym, training like a madman. By 6:30 a.m., maybe 7, I'm in the office. I will be here until about 4 o'clock or so. I'll go home, take care of the pup again, take a shower, and then I will be back in that office at home until about midnight. 4 hours sleep, and then repeat. That sort of maddening pursuance of saying, no matter what, I'm going to get things done. That's that real dopamine hit right there. And it may sound counterintuitive, thinking to yourself, why would that be fun? But when you're aggressively working toward what you want to do and you're slowly seeing results, which you're never going to see in the beginning, that's the dopamine. You're going to love it. You're going to get addicted to that. You feel productive. You feel hopeful. It feels like progress, even when nothing necessarily changed in that moment. I have been through some wildly bad things and bad situations getting myself to where I am today. But consistency doesn't care. Consistency doesn't care how you're feeling. It doesn't care about your emotions. It doesn't care if you know, your parents died or this happened or that happened. You crashed your car. Ultimately, all that matters, especially when you're trying to get things done, is did I or did I not put that work in and put that time in? So it's a very quiet, unrewarding system in the short term that if you can't hack it, it's going to beat you down. So what happens, right? People confuse these two things, excitement and progress. They keep starting new things instead of sticking things out, with the one thing that if they stuck it out long enough, they'd inevitably see results in the long term, right? You start the diets again, you start the workouts again, you restart your business, your routine, your daily good habits. I'm going to read every day. Yeah, where'd that go in 2 weeks? Because you had one bad night, you didn't have a chance to do it. Just because you missed one day doesn't mean it's all over. There can be a bad day here or there. I have some days, granted very rare, and I try my best to avoid them at all costs, where things that are going on in my personal life dramatically affect how much time I can put into my business. And it may sound funny to say this, but I may only have about 10 hours or 12 hours one day to put into my company. But when you're building a large scale business and you're aggressively scaling it up, 10 to 12 hours is not a lot of time. But that progress that you get, even when in the slow term, it begins to fade. That's the part that nobody prepares you for. Because ultimately, you don't want this, but you do, where when you're building something up and scaling it, it feels like routine, right? You don't feel like you're clocking in. You don't want to feel like you're clocking in over and over again to do what you got to do. All the hours I work every day, I love it. I love being busy. And I hate nothing more than the weekends and holidays. I love seeing the people on holidays, but I'm itching because I know I can't get things done. And the kicker is, even if I decide, you know what, screw everybody in my life, I'm going to go do things on the holidays and get work done, I can only get back end stuff done because the whole rest of the world is with their families, and rightfully so. And that's a very illogical thing to think of, but they're not wrong, right? I'm not wrong about that. People make decisions based on how they feel. If they feel tired, they'll skip the workout. If it's a holiday, they'll skip getting anything productive done whatsoever. If they're stressed, they'll postpone it, you know? God forbid you have a bad day, somebody cuts you off in traffic. You know, is your day screwed? Or did you just lose about 3 seconds of, oh, you fucking piece of shit, cutting me off? I'm going to have to bleep that out. That's all that matters. Those minor inconveniences, when you allow them to take hold of your entire demeanor of the day, that's where you fall short. You know, they'll look at actions, right? Take somebody's actions, for example, and they'll just make it optional. You know you should be putting this effort in every single day. And those optional things are the first things to disappear when life gets uncomfortable, where you're looking at things that you might necessarily need to do today. I can take care of the admin stuff tomorrow. I can do it on the weekend. And then something comes up, something comes up. But if you're not completely driven to getting this stuff done, it's never going to happen. The people who follow through, they're not more motivated than you. They don't want it more than you. They don't feel better than you. They don't have no bad days. They don't have any no stress, but they don't let emotions run their calendar. If it's not on my calendar, it doesn't exist. Every single thing I do, from waking up in the morning, eating my meals, and going to the gym, and of course, every meeting and the work I have to get done, is blocked out in my calendar all day, every day. There is no room for error. I know what I'm doing, when I'm doing it, where I'm going to be to do it, and the travel time associated with getting from point A to point B. It is all accounted for. But they'll decide in advance what gets done and when, regardless of their emotions, because they're not thinking logically to be productive. Discipline itself isn't about pushing harder. It's about removing that negotiation factor, right? That negotiation back and forth, that's what exhausts people itself. It's not just the work. There's something out there called, what is it? Decision, let's just say decision fatigue. Actually, I think that's the term. Where you see a lot of hyper successful people, they pretty much wear the exact same thing every day. I'm sure they have multiple of them, but they wear the same thing every day because they have so much going on in their mind all day long, every day. And we've seen those pictures of Instagram where this is what an entrepreneur's mind looks like. And it's just a cluster of just nonsense and craziness. But in our head, it all makes sense algorithmically. Another major reason people don't follow through, it's simple. They just try to change every single thing at once. This is my coffee order. I've had the same coffee order for 7 years because I went to Spain and I couldn't get a regular coffee, but I can get an Americano, and I fell in love with it. My coffee order hasn't changed. I've ordered the same sandwich at the deli since I was 7. It's just how it goes. But when you consistently try to change these things, just for the sake of changing them, you set very unrealistic standards, bad habits, you overload your schedule, and you create plans that look impressive, but they're not sustainable. Because if you're ultimately and consistently hopping back and forth the one thing or the next, inevitably the quality falls short. So they'll do really good in the short term, right? You might build 70 businesses this year and build a beautiful website for each one. And then none of them make a single dollar. That's the key factor right there. 2 weeks of perfection, of early mornings, extreme discipline, and then life interrupts you. Oh, forget that when I got too busy. Let me try this company. Let me try this. Let me try this opportunity, whatever it is. But you need to hone in, lock in, right? Lock in 100% of your efforts toward exactly what you want to do. This is my mission. My company has pivoted once. We're originally short of the long, as we started as a way to help small businesses get back on their feet during COVID, and we turned into the global gold standard of deed and title theft protection to basically destroy deed pirates and deed and title theft scammers, and save families billions upon billions of dollars every single year from aggressive fraud and identity theft, really identity theft on steroids. But instead of adjusting the plan, we could have quit there, right? They didn't adjust the plan, they just quit. Then they blame themselves, or worse, they blame other people. And they think that they're perfect. Meanwhile, it was their laziness that allowed them to fail in the first place. The problem itself was building a system that required constant willpower when they didn't yet have the capabilities to execute on that constant, consistent willpower. That's a learned experience. When I was building my first companies a long time ago, before I sold those, I took days off. I didn't know any better. And they weren't nearly as successful as what we're doing now because you learn from your mistakes. So if you've built businesses in the past and you've hyped yourself up that you're going to be the man and then it failed, and you did it again and it failed, you did it again and it failed, but these are all different companies, history repeats itself, right? So ultimately now, if you go through that same habit again, guess what's going to happen? The goal isn't to impress yourself for a week or talk a big game to everybody around you for a week. The goal is to aggressively become who you claim to be. And I'll say that again. It is to aggressively become who you claim you are. That's the biggest thing. If you think you're going to be this worldwide global Forbes entrepreneur, nobody's saying you can't do it. The only thing saying you can't do it is you. And not physically, but it's in your own head because of your habits. Consistency isn't always fun, but that's why it works, right? Nobody talks about how the boring consistency can affect you over long term. Same schedule, same habits, same process. And because it doesn't feel like, just because it doesn't feel exciting, people just assume it's not working. But take fitness, for example. I've eaten the same thing pretty much every single day for years. I don't look at food as, ooh, what do I want? I look at it as, I know what I'm going to have. This is my last meal. It's empty now, but it's 8 ounces of beef, 2 whole eggs, a bunch of pickles in there, and half a banana. I'll eat that 4 times a day or 5 times a day if I didn't make steaks that night, right? If I was in a bit of a rush because the ground beef I pre-prep. But that's regardless. I don't wonder, ooh, what do I want for dinner? What do I want for lunch? If I had to think what I wanted for lunch every day, I would drive myself mad. But that boring, quote unquote boring, is a sign you're doing things right. I'm giving my body pure, clean, nutrient dense food 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And that's going to compound into results. Momentum itself, man, momentum feels quiet before all of a sudden it gets real powerful. Your diet may seem boring. All of a sudden, you're in great shape and people are respecting you more. You know, if you walk into a room and you're 400 pounds in a tuxedo and somebody like myself or in great shape walks in there in a t-shirt, their eyes go to us, not the guy 400 pounds in a tux, but the eye goes to the person in shape because it's an unspoken sense of respect where when you look at somebody who's in shape, regardless of who they are, what they do for a living, you could be a contractor, you could be a garbage man, you could be a CEO, a janitor, the president, it doesn't matter. But ultimately, based on who you are, your physique is a perfect example of that because it's written on you. You know, the calories you eat in private, they show in public, right? Oh, I eat clean. Well, then why are you 50 pounds overweight? Ultimately, right? Why are you 50, 60, 70 pounds overweight? Oh, but you have good habits. No, you don't. I would never take advice from you. If you can't get your own life in order, why would I take advice from somebody trying to help me out? When I have my discipline in action right here every day, and you're telling me, oh, this is better, why would I listen to the advice of somebody who can't even get the base level set up of their own health and well-being? But that identity is the real differentiating factor right there. And this is where most people miss it. They try to do disciplined things, right? But they never become disciplined people. So every action, it feels forced. Like, oh, I have to work on my company today. I have to do this. I have to do this. What about I get to? What about I get to wake up in the morning? I'm excited to wake up. I get to be the man. I get to be the fucking man of my life. This one thing that was once a thought in my brain saves families billions of dollars. I feed multiple families with their careers. I feed my own family. I take care of people. We save banks, once again, billions of dollars every year, all because of something that came into your head. Now, that concept right there, that identity, it's important to feel good about yourself and to aggressively pursue greatness in your life. But never put it over the things that matter most. For me, I value my freedom more than anything. And money and freedom, they go here, right? But you can't have this without your stress being up here, without your discipline being up here, and without your consistency over here. And your time invested, it's way, way off the charts. You know, People don't say I'm trying to work out. They say I'm someone who is willing to train. They don't say I hope I stay consistent. People will say I finish what I start. You know, I always tell people I don't quit. I'm done. I didn't give up. I'm done. This isn't for me. It's over. Because there's a difference there between being somebody who quits and deciding, once again, it's hard to make this distinction when you don't know what's going on and you don't have that discipline yet. But the distinction between being a quitter and understanding where it's no longer worth your time and efforts. There's opportunities I've walked away from because it was taking up this much of my time, giving me this much stress, and was only going to yield me this much benefit. That allocation isn't there. It's a bad gap. But distraction itself, and regardless of all of this, distraction is what kills your follow through in life, man. And in my opinion, it is the biggest silent killer that destroys any follow through you'll have in life. People trying to build something meaningful, but they're completely distracted. You have notifications, you have the killer of all things, social media, which is ironic because you're watching this for something good. So, you know, there's a little bit of positivity and every negative, right? A yin and yang situation. Comparing themselves to other people's opinions, and they never build momentum. You should never take advice from two people. Somebody that you wouldn't replace yourself with, given their shoes, and never take advice of somebody where you don't care about their opinion. Those are two big factors. There's something funny I always say where if I know somebody, I'm like, oh, he's a good guy, or oh, he's a good kid. You could be 50 years old, but if you're somebody who's incredibly undisciplined and you're going through life just smoking weed every day, doing nothing productive, like, oh, he's a good kid because he still acts like a child. But you could have a 16-year-old out there crushing it, putting in all the work humanly possible. Like, he's a good dude. That's a fucking man right there. And that's the difference right there, is understanding that intrinsic value that you have and that you put out there into the ether based on who you are and how your habits, how they compound. Your focus compounds. Distractions, they reset progression, right? You can't follow through on anything if your attention is scattered and all over the freaking place, man. But ultimately, what's the real cost of not following through, right? The real cost of not following through, it's not failure. It's not like you're going to be homeless. It's not like everybody in your life is going to hate you. It's quite the opposite. It's regret. Because if you don't follow through and you decide to do what every single other person on this planet is doing, you decide, you know what, I'll follow the reins. I'm not going to stir up any water. I'm just going to be exactly who the system wants me to be. You're becoming exactly what they want, man. A cog in the machine. Nobody gets mad at people doing worse than them. They get mad at the people doing better than them, and they bad talk the people doing less than them. And I'm never saying you should bad talk anybody doing things less than you plan to do in this world. But rather, does that mean that that level of doing things in this lifetime is where you ultimately want to be? It's knowing that you're going to quit early. It's knowing you negotiated on compromise when it got a little bit uncomfortable, you poor baby, right? Knowing you don't give yourself a real chance But you don't know you don't give yourself a real chance until you understand those disciplinary habits. It's a learned mechanism. The weight that people carry all of their life, it's because of their regret. It's not because they didn't succeed. It's not because they didn't stay consistent long enough just to see what was inevitably possible, but that follow through. Once again, it's not talent, it's not luck. I can't emphasize that again. It's not talent and it's not luck, man. And it's not motivation. Motivation's like a drug. It comes quick and it fades even faster. You watch a little video on Instagram, right? You're scrolling, you see something motivating, and all of a sudden, I'm ready. I'm going to build that company. I'm going to build an empire. I'm going to buy a Lamborghini. I'm going to get a Rolex. I'm going to do blah, 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 blah. And then you sit at your computer and you build out this whole website for 2 hours. And then your friend texts you. You want to hop on Xbox? Yeah, I got a lot of work done. No problem. And there goes your productivity. There goes what was about to make you something incredibly special in this world. You know, there's a lot of evil spirits, a lot of demonic figures out there where ultimately they want to drag you down, especially when they see you thriving up to do what you're supposed to do in this world, what you're called to do in this world. Do yourself a favor, give those demons a big, and follow through what you're going to say. Don't compromise on your morals. Be who you think you are in your head, because you're not him yet. I'll never be the person that I am in my head, because as soon as I level up there, the bar goes up, the bar goes up, and the bar goes up, man. And the second you hit complacency in who you want to be and how you are, you're dead in the water. But I appreciate you guys taking the time to watch this. There's going to be more videos coming out very consistently. Like, follow, share, subscribe. It helps tremendously. Have a great day. And make this the last freaking video you watch today, man. Whatever you were planning on doing, shut this off and get it done.